Have you ever wanted to just get a new language without getting totally buried in a mountain of grammar books? Well, today, we're going to crack the code on spoken Vietnamese. I'm going to show you a simple, powerful method that turns listening from a test into a game you can actually win. Let's dive in.
So, to make this fun, let's think of this as a mission. Your objective, to pull out specific pieces of information from a short conversation. Yeah, for the next few minutes, you're basically a linguistic detective.
All right, detective, here's your mission file. See this simple form? Your job is to fill it out. We're looking for two pieces of intel. Nghề, which means job, and sathik, which means interest. You're about to hear someone introduce themselves, and all you have to do is fill in those blanks. So, what do you think? Ready to tackle this using just your listening skills? Now, I know that might sound a little intimidating, but don't you worry. I'm about to give you a super simple strategy that makes this whole thing way easier than it looks. You know, every successful mission needs a plan, right? Well, ours is a really simple two-step strategy that's going to tune your ears to listen with a purpose, to zero in on exactly what you need. And here is that plan. Just 2 steps. First, we read the headings on the form. Super simple, right? We need to know our targets. But step 2 is where the magic really happens. We're going to predict the exact kind of language we're about to hear. This is like priming your brain to catch the info we need. Okay, so step 1 is easy but absolutely crucial. We're identifying our targets. We look at the form, and we know we're hunting for a job and an interest. That's it. Everything else you hear, it's just background noise that we can totally ignore for now. Now for step 2, and trust me, this is the real game changer. We're going to predict the sentence structure. Just take a second and think. How does a person usually introduce their job or their hobbies in a conversation? Well, here's our prediction. To talk about a job, a Vietnamese speaker will almost always say tôi là, which means I am. And to talk about an interest, they're going to say tôi thích, which means I like. See? These are the key phrases, the little triggers we need to listen for. And look at how it works. If you hear tôi là, the very next thing is probably the job, like nhà báo, a journalist. If you hear tôi thích, what comes next is the interest, like âm nhạc, music. The point isn't to understand every single word, nope. It's just to catch these key patterns. Okay, you've got the strategy. You know the trigger phrases to listen for. It is time to put this into practice. Your mission starts now. Listen close. Okay, the recording is starting. Xin chào, tôi tên là Kim Kamal. Hello, my name is Kim Kamal. All right, so far just a name. No job or interest yet. We're still listening. And whoa, there it is. Tôi là nhà báo và diễn viên. Did you catch that? Tôi là, that's our trigger. That's the signal for the job. So the words right after that, that's our first piece of intel. And here comes the final piece of the puzzle. Tôi thích âm nhạc và thể thao. Boom, there's our other pattern. Tôi thích, I like. That second trigger points us directly to her interests. Okay, mission complete. Time for the debrief. Let's break down exactly what we just heard and see how that simple 2-step strategy made it so much easier to snatch the right information out of the conversation. Let's look at that key sentence again. The moment you hear tôi là, that's the signal. It's like a little flag that should pop up in your brain saying, attention, job information coming right up. And because we predicted that pattern, we were totally ready for what she said next. Nhà báo, which is journalist, and diễn viên, which is actress. And just like that, the first box on our form is filled. See how well that works? Now, let's look at that second piece of intel. Remember this line? Tôi thích âm nhạc và thể thao. This is where, once again, our prep work pays off big time. That trigger phrase, tôi thích, tells us we're about to hear her interests. And sure enough, she lists them right out for us. Âm nhạc, music, and thể thao, sports. And the second box is filled. Done. And here we go. The final result. Mission accomplished. See, by just focusing on 2 super simple patterns, we were able to cut through all the other words and grab exactly what we needed. It's a pretty powerful way to listen, isn't it? So, let's lock in the most important takeaways from all of this. I want you to think of these as 2 brand new, super useful tools that you've just added to your Vietnamese listening toolkit. These are the 2 phrases you want to burn into your memory. Tôi là for jobs, tôi thích for interests. They are simple, they're direct,
and they are incredibly common. Honestly, just mastering these two gives you a huge advantage when you're trying to understand basic introductions. And hey, here's a little pro tip that makes this whole strategy even more effective. Vietnamese communication is often really direct and to the point. People tend to just state things simply, just like in this example. There isn't a lot of extra fluffy language, which makes our job of hunting for patterns that much easier. Okay, now for the most important part of all, making this your own. How would you introduce yourself using these patterns? Go on, seriously, try it right now. Say it out loud. Fill in the blanks. Tôi là, and say your job, and tôi thích, and say your interests. Because really, the absolute best way to make this stuff stick is to actually use it. Go ahead, give it a shot.